The Fancounters Celebrity Podcast, number 159. Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast.
You were like the carrot top of interviewers.
Wow, how disappointing was that question?
You did not just ask me that.
Well, that's a big question.
Never mind, I'm done. I'm not doing the show.
Wow, I can't believe it.
I'm telling you, I'm hooked.
Nick.
Yeah, he's so awesome. He's still a good friend of mine.
Happy New Year from the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Tracy.
And we are back together this week for another great episode. As the calendar turned last night, we have the whole topic that always comes up this time of year of resolutions.
I normally don't have any resolutions, but I'm working on trying to lose some weight, so I've been doing well, and so now I'll just keep going and lose more.
That sounds good. I thought it was going to be, I want to get a new motorcycle.
No, I'm looking
You're happy with what you have?
I'm happy with what I got, but I'm looking at maybe a truck after graduation from my master's degree.
Ooh, all right. Well, that's a good treat.
Yeah.
I had a resolution for this year. I was supposed to be doing a movie. I don't know if that's going to happen. I did a big push for it last week again. I don't know if it'll work, but, hopefully that'll come through.
Well, you got to keep working on it, buddy.
I am. I that's why I put out last week's episode.
Never give up.
I'm never giving up. Not going to annoy anybody, but I'm not going to give up.
Just put a little, bug in their ear every
That's
once in a while.
Did. That was last week.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now mention it again in a couple weeks again, That'd
okay.
Good. Yeah.
Cool. We'll just keep banging on the door.
That's right.
This week on the show, we've got somebody who has never given up on her pursuit of success, from doing acting to running her own business to writing her own book. Shannan Wilson has done it all, and because of my friend Steve Joyner, Shannan is on the show today to share her experience starting her own business, starring in a film called Sno Babies, which is now available. You can go out and get that film now. And then she also wrote a book about preemies, which is pretty special.
That is pretty cool.
So, without further ado, let's get into our show for our first show of 2021. This is Shannan Wilson. Shannan Wilson, welcome to Fancounters. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, I'm looking forward to talking with you today because as I read through your bio, it features like little pieces of life experiences that I would normally expect like 10 people to have, but you've experienced like a wide range of careers, entrepreneurial efforts, and you've had some success and failure along the way. So I kind of want to get into a bunch of that in a little bit. But when you look back at all of that you've done, and we highlighted a lot in our opening, successful or not, what experience stands out to you as the one that gives you the most satisfaction?
I think the one that gives me, on a professional level, is when I had my company Focus Talent, because I always wanted my own business. And that was a big goal of mine because I always was pretty business-minded. So I think just starting a successful company like that, really, as an entrepreneur, just from the ground up, zero money, and just getting my way in the door into New York, and getting my first clients, and just having that for that long a time. It helped provide for my family at that time. And so I think I'm really, really proud of the fact that I was able to do that.
You were born and raised in Texas, which Texas I'm a very big fan of. And after college graduation, you headed to Colorado because you thought it was a good place to live. Did you have a plan or a dream in mind when you moved? And what did your parents think about this spontaneous decision you made?
So, I went to college in this great little college in Nacogdoches, Texas, Stephen F. Austin, because my SAT scores were too low on my math to get into UT. So I went to SFA and then met a guy who was, I ended up dating all through college, so I didn't transfer to University of Texas, which was my plan. It's so interesting how you can have a plan and it can just change.
Mm-hmm. For love, of course.
So there was a reason why I did so poorly on my SATs. So I dated a guy named Brady Smith, who's actually now married to Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
No
just
way.
A little fun fact.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Super nice guy, but we weren't meant for one another. And so kind of had, we had a breakup, and I thought, I'm just going to pick up and go to Denver. I had never been to Denver. I just thought it sounded really pretty. And I was working at the time after college at the Rock Bottom Brewery, which was a restaurant in Houston. And the first one was in Denver, the original restaurant. So I just transferred from the Houston location. This was that summer after college, and transferred to the Denver one. And as far as my parents, I had saved up a bunch of money to go to Europe that summer. I saved up all my money. I had worked. And my mom, and understandably so, I had much younger brother and sister. She's like, when you come back, Shannan, from Europe, you got to be on your own. That was her. She was a single mom. That was her thing. So I thought, you know what, long term, I'm just going to take all my money that I have, and I'm going to move to Colorado. And that's what I did. Now,
you eventually did move to L.A. to pursue modeling until you met your husband of almost 20 years, and then you moved to New York. So was the move to New York in hopes that you might jumpstart more modeling or commercial work, or was that just something you together wanted to do?
No. So just to back up just a little bit, I met my husband in Colorado when I was getting ready to leave for LA. And LA had always been in the back of my mind. I always wanted to experience. I'm big on experiencing things. So I never like regretting anything. And I had always thought about moving to LA or just going out to California and having that, just meeting, just going out there. That was always like this dream I had as a kid. And I thought, if I get married and I don't do this, I will always look back and regret it. So I met him and I said, hey, I'm on my way to LA, but I ended up staying in Denver for 6 months, but we had a long distance relationship for 2 years. But I went to LA mostly just to see if I could do it. And man, I was so dirt poor out there. It's everything that people say it is. I mean, I was able to sign on with an agency, and I did a lot of modeling and a lot of runway, did a couple of commercials, and I took some acting classes out there, and it was a great time. I have a lot of good stories from it. But I moved to Philly because his family was out here. So I actually live outside of Philadelphia now.
LA is really expensive.
It is. And I moved out there, and I went straight to Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach, and I stayed with a friend. And I wasn't completely hyper-focused on trying to be an actress. I never had, even though I loved doing it and I loved the creativity and taking classes, it was never a goal to make it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To be famous.
So you mentioned one of the most successful things that you feel like you did was to run your own company, and that was a promotional staffing agency, right?
Right.
But my question is, and I didn't look this up because I want you to tell me, what exactly is a professional staffing agency, and why did you choose that business as the one that you really felt passionate about to start up?
Those are good questions. When I was in LA, I found to make extra money, people said you could work for marketing companies and pass out, and I'm very resourceful. Like, I have bus tables, I'll do whatever, you know. And they said you can pass out products and festivals. You know how people are on the streets, you don't see them anymore, but they're like, here, try this new Tide sample, try this Honey Bunches of Oats. So that's the whole promotional business.
Okay.
I'd never heard of that before, and it was huge in LA. In fact, one of the guys that was my manager on so many of the promotions I worked on is Oscar from The Office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he used to have to leave to go do auditions, or he's like, I have a huge audition that I have for tomorrow, and I'm like, that's so cool that you're auditioning and working at it. And then he ended up landing The Office after I left LA, which was so happy for him.
That's cool.
And so marketing companies, staffing companies, because I was pretty good at it. I would show up, I would do my job, and I ended up being a tour manager where you tour around with the vehicles and set up the events. And I thought, they're using me asking me to use my friends to help staff it. And I thought, you know what, I could do this. I could be one of these companies that provides the brand ambassadors for the marketing events. And then I could get my 20% and make a lot more money. So that was how that came about. So
I love that. And you did that for 14 years.
Yeah, I did it I moved out here and did it for 14 years. And my first client was out of New York. It was a big client. And I had to lie. I first of all, we had no money, my husband and I, when we moved out here, and I had to take the home line. So we had no home line. I had to answer the home as Focus Talent Promotions. How may I help you?
And you're like, it's
and
mom.
Like, this is so annoying. Huh?
And on the other end, it's like, it's mom.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, I'm onto something here. Just work with me. And I finally convinced this company to let me get a meeting in New York City. And, I had just moved out here. This was 18 years ago, or no, I guess 14 years ago at the time. Well, 2004, whenever that was. And I flew my sister in from University of Texas. She was in college, and I said, listen, you have got to pretend like you are an assistant, that you work with me, that you're a corporate person. She's like 19. And we go up to this meeting in New York in this big room, and I pitch them, and then I got the account, and that's how it started.
Wow. All right, 14 years is a long time to be out of the entertainment industry. Did you feel like you couldn't do both?
You can't do both. So even I was modeling a lot in Philadelphia. There were a lot of, it was at the time when Neiman's and Saks Fifth and those retail stores had so many runway shows, and there was a lot of print work. And yeah, no, you can't. And I traveled around with Mitsubishi doing their car shows. So I would do all of these different ways to make money. And you can't do both. If you're going to have a business, that's why I named it Focus, because you have to focus on 100% on everything to make that company successful.
Shannan, what did you learn by starting and running that business that you wish you would have known before you made the decision to do it?
I would have known micromanaging and being in charge of hundreds of people is a total pain in the ass. And the reason why I stopped doing it was because just controlling people's actions are just so annoying to me. And making sure that they would show up, and you have a huge event, you convince a marketing company or a product to use your company, and you're representing them, and then the people no show. So there's just a really unreliable level of people out there that will, just kind of like work you over a little bit. And so that's what made that job so challenging.
Okay.
So now let's get into one of the films that has garnered you some attention. It's a film called Sno Babies. You play the mother of a young girl who gets addicted to heroin. It's a very relevant subject. What attracted you to this project? And tell us a little about the audition process you had to go through.
My manager, CPM talent, Georgianne Brazzi, she believes in me. And she called me one day and said, listen, there's Diane Erie, who's a big casting director in Philly, recommended you for a part in this film, Sno Babies. And they haven't cast the mom yet. She said, it's an independent film. I don't know much about it, but I think it's going to be a really great opportunity for you. And so I said, oh, yeah, Christmas movie. It sounds really like a family kind of thing. I'm totally in on it. Mm-hmm. They send the script over, and it's totally opposite of that. I thought it was like, it's Sno Babies.
Right.
So they gave me a scene to learn, and I loved the script from the get-go. I just thought it was so good. Mike Walsh is the writer, and it was a female director, Bridget Smith, and it was the first feature film role for me to have an opportunity to book like that. And so I put the audition on tape, I think on a Thursday, and then Georgianne called me and said they really like you and they'd like to meet with you on Saturday for just some coffee, just to meet you. And I thought, thank God, because when I have to do callbacks, I get so nervous, and I really wanted this part. And so they didn't make me redo it. I was able to just to sit with them and chat, and then they offered me the part at the coffee shop.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That Saturday. Yeah.
So your first feature film then, it was also Bridget Smith's first directorial debut on a feature film. Now, I'm not alluding to the fact that she hadn't done projects before, but could you tell it was her first feature film when you're working with her on set?
No. It was so well run, and everyone was just, there was a great sense of love. I know that sounds so cheesy, but everyone was just really there because they wanted to be there. It wasn't like we were getting paid a lot of money. We just really believed in the project. And Bridget, I had some scenes that they were hard to do. And Katie Kelly, who had to play the heroin addict, her scenes of shooting up and the stuff that she went through, Bridget was so good at making you feel comfortable in those dramatic scenes where you really have to go to places you don't want to. So no, she was such a professional. Love her.
Now, Sno Babies is a film that some critics anyways, missed in many ways. Mm-hmm. For example, they criticized the subplot of the couple who has fertility issues. And when you hear criticism of a project that you have some personal skin in the game, do you dismiss that easily because it's just like a film critic and it's just somebody's opinion, or do those things kind of haunt people in the project for a while?
I think that's such a personal question.
Yeah.
Me personally, when I read that, I think they missed a lot of what we were, trying to do and what the audience reviews portray. And I don't take the critic reviews to heart as much because there's stuff that they love that I'll watch. I'm like, oh my God, the critics loved it. And then I think it's a horrible film.
Yep.
So I'm just like, that's the worst film I've ever seen. And the critics gave it, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I don't know. They were just, some of the reviews were some of the critiques were very angry almost sounding.
Wow. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's movies out there that I sit there and go, wow, this movie was terrible and it was rated really high. And then there's other movies that were rated terrible and you go, wow, I really like that. I connected with it or something,
Yeah, it has to be a personal connection. And I really don't. I mean, obviously I read critics' reviews and sometimes I agree with them. And in this case, I obviously don't agree with it. But the feedback we've gotten from the audience and people that have seen it. And for me, myself, I watched it. I didn't see the film. I wasn't able to see it until the day it was released, like everyone else. And I was actually nervous. I thought, oh my God, I don't know. Because the critics, some of them were some harsh reviews. And then when I saw it, and my husband's so honest about everything, I mean, we were crying. I'm crying in my own scenes.
Wow.
I was so touched by it. And I knew what was happening, but I was still emotionally invested in this film. So whatever. More power to him. More power to him.
I love it.
Mike Walsh, the writer and producer of Sno Babies, has been very vocal about your final scene in the movie, saying, and I quote, "Your performance was gut-wrenching." Do you enjoy watching your own performances on screen, and can you appreciate that kind of comment when viewing your own work? Because, as we all know, everybody's their own worst critic.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Yeah, no. When I read that, he sent that over to Georgianne, and after we had done that scene, and I mean, I did. I loved hearing that. It makes you feel really good because you want to do your best, right? There's a lot on the line. You don't want to, especially for something like this, where you don't want to offend people who actually have experienced this. So for him to have said that was so nice, and to see myself on film, yeah, I mean, I could have some. There's times where I'm like, oh my God, I look so tired, or there's certain things in the scene I'm supposed to be tired, but yeah, you kind of have those little, those shallow thoughts in your head, and but I don't think it's easy for anybody to see themselves on screen. I think we still always think about how we could do something a little bit better.
Well, and I think especially when you're watching yourself with like your husband, who's probably, he's in a weird spot, because if he's like, you weren't so good there, then he's sleeping on the couch. But if he says you were really awesome, you're like, are you being serious? So there's kind of a no-win situation for your own family critiquing your work.
Yeah, my family's from Texas. They're pretty honest. And I felt good about my work in this. I did. There are times where you see something in an audition or something. I'll look back on old auditions that I've sent in or something. And I'm like, I really won that. You kind of know or feel good about something. And because Bridget and the storyline was so great, and my actors I was working with, they made it so easy because they were so good. My husband in the film, Ken Arnold, and my daughter, Katie Kelly, and Abby, my other little girl in the film, were so talented that it makes they help you.
Nice.
They help you not fail.
Now, the Christmas movie season is upon us, and I was very worried. I've said this many times throughout the summer when COVID was going on in this podcast, that I was worried Hallmark wouldn't have movies to watch this year, but now there's like 40 new movies to check out.
Yes.
And I'm bringing that up, Shannan, because it looks like it might be your turn now to star in a Christmas movie. It's listed as Finding Christmas, and it reunites you with some familiar faces from Sno Babies, your on-screen daughter, Katie Kelly, as well as Bridget Smith. So can you tell us anything about this developing film?
It's had some changes. The script has a little bit with some of the casting. So that's kind of ongoing a little bit, but Mike has the script finished for the most part. And it is like not a time travel piece. I don't want to say that, but half of it takes place in present day, and then it kind of goes back into biblical times. So it backs up, and the same people are playing both parts. So here presently I'm playing Martina, and I'm so excited because Mike wrote me in as this Philly mob boss wife. So I get to have, the accent, the Philly accent and all that. So I'm really excited because I get to play this whole totally different character. And we're thinking like Adriana from Sopranos, just this whole, vibe.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we talked, Wardrobe called me last week and we had a discussion about it. And then it also goes back in time where I'm still the mob boss's wife, but in like a biblical sense. So like the tribe wife.
Do you watch are you a big Christmas movie watcher this time of year?
I love Christmas movies. My good friend Geraldine is starring in one of the Hallmark Christmas movies. So, yes, I love Christmas movies and I love Christmas, I think. And especially right now for COVID, I'm really in the mood to I'm not usually in the mood to decorate my house, but this year I think I am. I think we need that, that positive vibe. So do you guys like Christmas movies?
Oh, I love Christmas movies. Nick, you're a big Hallmark Channel fan, aren't you?
I do, because, everybody's had such a tough year, no doubt, between COVID, the election, all this stuff. It's like, I just want to, and I did this last night. My wife and I watched one of the Hallmark movies, and we didn't get through the whole thing. But it was about, I don't really get into the prince ones where they fall in love with this, royalty, and she finds out he's a prince of a country, and that's the one I was watching. But to take yourself into a different time, into communities that really don't exist, where everybody knows each other, and they're giving out free coffee to everybody. It's like, I want to live in one of these towns. I want to find that.
Did you have a box of Kleenex with you?
No.
You want to walk down the street and someone just hands you a piping hot cup of apple cider?
Wouldn't that be a dream?
Yes, I love things like yes. It would. And some of these old towns where I live now, it is kind of like a dream for Christmas time. Cape May, New Jersey, so old, and they decorate the houses. My town's from the 1600s, and it's old too, but they just put the lights up, and it's these old, big Victorian homes. It's just so pretty.
Yeah.
It always seems the small towns are the ones that give you that country setting feel that we're talking about.
I'll find one someday.
Yes, you will. All right. Change direction a little bit. I want to find out about a book you've written, which is available on Amazon, and it's called The Littlest Peanut. It's a baby book for teeny tiny ones. It's dedicated to preemies. It's been endorsed and featured on Fox News by Megyn Kelly. Since both of your children were preemies, we can only assume they were the inspiration for the book.
That's right. Yep, they were.
Very
and
cool.
I'm looking at my son just came outside right now, and I'm looking at him, and he's so cute. He's 13 now, and my daughter's 14. Well, she just turned 15 a few days ago. But yeah, separately, I had 2 premature babies. Just random. I wasn't expecting to do that. And the doctor said after the first one I shouldn't have another, but I did. And I was sitting in the NICU with my daughter the first round, and baby books just didn't match what a parent goes through. You want to fill out your baby book, and it's, it's for babies that are born full term. But at the time, I had to change the milestones. So a milestone that's important to a parent of a preemie is the first time you get to hold their little finger, the first time you get to change their diaper, because a lot of them are in isolettes, or, what we used to say as incubators. And all of those little milestones are so important to a parent of a preemie. So that's when I came up with the Littlest Peanut and created it so that parents could have something to fill out when they're in the NICU for all the little special moments for their babies. And my brother-in-law, Joe Kniff, he illustrated the whole thing. So we're on our 4th edition.
Wow.
And we try to get back to the NICUs. A couple of women actually emailed me last week, and a lot of parents will email me and say, hey, in honor of my daughter, sometimes it's in memory of my child, I didn't have a going home page at the end of the book because sometimes the babies don't get to go home. They don't make it through. They don't make it. And so I wanted something also that the parents could have, that they could record. Still, I know it sounds really morbid, but it doesn't to a parent. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does. It actually sounds really thoughtful that you didn't include that page, because that's when they can go and buy the other book.
Right. Yeah. So they have this little special book of the time they did have their baby. And I just love hearing the stories back from the parents, and on Amazon reading the reviews from people, and just, just with that you're helping out a little bit. You always just kind of want to help out, and there aren't always ways you can help a parent. But I think all of us have that same ability to be able to relate to one another. We know what to say to each other. A lot of times when you have a preemie, people are like, what happened? What'd you do? They just ask the weirdest questions. They don't know what to say.
Right. Now, this book was your first, so I kind of got your business take on what you wish you would have known. But for aspiring authors who dream of getting the attention that your book did, what advice do you have first-time authors?
I think, first of all, this isn't like a novel. I couldn't even imagine writing a novel or something, how hard that would be. But you don't have to pay someone. My first time around with The Littlest Peanut, I paid a company quite a bit of money to publish it. And that's not necessary. So anything that if you want to write something, just see if you can publish it yourself. There's so many outlets now that you can do that. So you don't have to pay a lot of money and let them convince you that they need to market it. You can do all of that on your own. So just be really, especially these days. It wasn't as prominent then to publish your own book when I had written The Littlest Peanut, but I would have saved a lot of money if I had just done it myself.
All right. So lastly, on Fancounters, we always love to hear about our guests' encounters with their fans. Have you met any of your fans where there has been a moment that you will never forget?
No, I'm not that well known, no, but I have seen when I've done little things like a commercial or I did Runway. It was called Runway Moms on TLC when I was pregnant with my daughter. And it was about models who still model in New York while they're pregnant. So, and I worked a lot in, maternity wear. And I ended up getting, having Kendall early. So they kind of featured that, in the NICU after I had her. And there were times where I'd be walking down the street or one time at Starbucks and this lady's like, "Oh my God, is that Kendall?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, I saw Runway Mom." So that, that kind of stuff is always, interesting. But I know someone who's pretty famous that I'll have lunch with sometimes. And I couldn't imagine someone, people are constantly coming up to this person. And I think that would be really tiresome.
Did they ever talk about that with you as far as what they feel like
when
that happens? Oh, they do?
Yeah, that person loves it. They love it. So I think, if you, for me, I'm kind of private, and I don't know if I would like that all the time, but I think this particular person knows she's super happy about her fans.
Huh.
I think if you have fans, you're going to be happy. So if that happened to me, I wouldn't be mad about it, obviously. It would just be kind of awkward.
It is funny that you're like, well, I'm not really well known. And it's like, but that's the thing. Some people just appear in things and they're recognized and you're like, wow, you know who I am? Or, you put that together. It's amazing. So you don't have to be like
from QVC sometimes. They
know you from QVC?
Sometimes on, because I'm on QVC sometimes. So my sister said the other day that she's a physical therapist, and she said, the woman's like, her patient said, "I love QVC." And my sister Kelly said, "My sister's on QVC sometimes." And she's like, "Who?" And Kelly said, "Shannan." And she's like, "Shannan." And Kelly goes, she almost started crying. She said, "I was actually going to call you, but I was so behind in my schedule just so you could say hello to her."
Oh my gosh. Well, you got fans everywhere.
I guess.
Now, tell us where we can follow your adventures on social media and other projects.
I should be better on social media, but if you Google Shannan, Shannan Wilson, then a lot of my stuff pops up. But I'm on Twitter at Shannan N Wilson and Instagram on Shannan Wilson 7, because there's another Shannan Wilson out there.
And spelled that way.
And spelled with an A, yeah.
That's crazy. It's funny, when Steve sent me your info, we were talking on the phone, and I said, "Is this Shannan?" I was like, how do you spell it? And he goes, he thought that was the dumbest question ever. He goes, "It's Shannan." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sorry."
People say Shannan, and then I live in New Jersey, so when I call to make a doctor's appointment, I'm like, they'll give, "Can I have your name?" And I said, and I'll say Shannan, and they're like, Sharon? Sharon? And then I say Shannan, and they're like, Shannon. And then I finally, so now when I say my name, and I have done this for a long time, and they ask me my name, I just say Shannan. And then they're like, "Oh, Shannan." Okay, then they get it right away.
And then you're waiting for the doctor to call you, and they're like, "Shannan."
Like, Shannan. I mean, that's how people say my name out here, Shannan.
It's been a delight. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Shannan.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our thanks to Shannan Wilson for joining us on the show this week. Another good show, Tracy. You're coming into your own on Fancounters.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about critics, what they think of movies, bad and good, and it brought me to think about where I go to find out if a movie is good or not, and that's Redbox.
I had no clue that you can do that on Redbox.
Yeah, people can leave reviews for movies, and I have found they are the most honest people of, a lot of people cite Rotten Tomatoes and all this,
Right.
and I don't get into that website. But if you go to Redbox and you see a movie that is a 1 star and you read the comments and they're like, complete waste of time, I can't get this hour and a half back. Those are real. Like it's definitely a true thing. And I say that because last month I rented, and I know this is kind of old news, but it's relevant now, An Imperfect Murder. It's a movie that starred Alec Baldwin, and he didn't really star in it. I think what they did was they paid him for 1 day of work.
Okay.
They put him in a lot of scenes. They must have shot them all in 1 day, and then say, oh, it stars Alec Baldwin. Because, yeah, he appears throughout the film, but you can tell that all this stuff was taped the same day.
Well, that's how they get you to, get you pulled into it.
And it's a weird movie because it was filmed in 2017, but it was not released until October 9th of 2020.
There had to be something holding that thing up.
Yeah, because it was brand new at Redbox when I got it. And then I couldn't remember the name of it before we taped this segment. So I went online and I was just like, I can't even find it on Alec Baldwin's IMDb. But that's because it happened 3 years ago.
That's odd.
I don't know. Anyway, don't go see it. Imperfect Murder is an awful, horrible movie. Redbox rated it with 1 star and had those exact comments of the fact that, it was awful. You won't get that time back. The only redeeming part of this movie, Imperfect Murder, is that it's only 1 hour and 11 minutes.
So you're not really losing a lot of time.
Not a lot of time, but it was awful. Not good.
I will not go watch it.
So that's where you should go if you want to find out if a movie's good or not. Redbox really is the place to go. That's going to do it for this week. First episode of 2021 is in the books.
Can you believe we made it through 2020?
I think this is just going to continue where 2021 is going to feel just like last year.
Yeah, I think we're not going to see things change until 2022.
Probably not. And remember last March when they were like, oh, this could go on for 12 to 18 months. And we're like, no, it's never going to last this long. Here we are. We still have COVID.
They're just going to keep dragging it out.
Forever. We're never going to get to see anybody. We're going to have to be hermits.
Wait, we're seeing each other.
We are. I'm not afraid of you.
Hey, are we social distancing?
I got to get the measuring tape out.
I don't think we are.
Crap. You can email us your social distance nightmares and your resolutions to hello@fancounters.com, and maybe next week we'll share them on the show. You never know. That's going to do it, Tracy.
Sounds good, man.
All right. We'll see you next week.
You bet.
Bye-bye.